She used to smile when he walked into the room. Now she barely looks up. What changed? At the start of a marriage, love feels effortless. Conversations are deep, laughter is frequent, and the connection is strong. But as years pass, something shifts. Many women, once deeply in love with their husbands, begin to feel distant, frustrated, or even resentful. Why does this happen? The reason is not as mysterious as it seems. It is incredibly practical. Women don't stop loving their husbands because of time. They start feeling unseen, unheard, and overwhelmed. The small, unnoticed burdens they carry every day begin to weigh them down, while the man they once adored seems more like a passive bystander than an engaged partner. Could this be happening in your marriage without you even realizing it? Let's talk about the real reasons behind this growing distance and how it can be prevented before it's too late. Good morning/afternoon/evening marriage is a journey that begins with love, passion, and excitement. But as the years pass, many women find themselves growing distant from the very man they once adored. The question is, why? Is it because love fades, or is there a deeper, more practical reason? The answer lies in the small, everyday moments that build up over time. One of the biggest reasons women start to feel disconnected is emotional neglect. In the early days, a husband might shower his wife with compliments, surprise her with small gestures, and listen to her thoughts with genuine interest. But as time passes, life becomes routine, and those little acts of love fade away. She no longer feels special. Instead, she feels invisible. Another reason is lack of communication. In the beginning, couples talk for hours about their dreams, their fears, and their future. But as responsibilities grow, kids, careers, finances, those deep conversations are replaced with quick check-ins about bills, schedules, and did you pick up the groceries? Without meaningful dialogue, emotional connection weakens. Then there is the mental and emotional load women carry. Many wives take on the bulk of household responsibilities, planning meals, remembering birthdays, organizing schedules, and making sure everything runs smoothly. If her husband assumes this is simply her job and doesn't contribute, resentment builds. She starts to feel more like a caretaker than a cherished partner. Another silent issue is unmet expectations and personal growth. People change over time, and women in particular often grow emotionally, intellectually, and even spiritually. If a husband becomes complacent, refuses to grow, or dismisses her evolving interests, she may start to see him as someone who is holding her back rather than walking beside her. Let's not ignore the impact of aging and physical changes. As couples grow older, they face new challenges, health issues, stress, and changes in appearance. A loving relationship requires reassurance, kindness, and care. But if a husband stops making his wife feel beautiful, wanted, or valued, she may begin to resent him, not because he has aged, but because he no longer tries to make her feel loved despite it. And finally, the most common yet underestimated reason: taking each other for granted. Love isn't a one-time declaration, it's a daily choice. When a husband stops making an effort, stops saying thank you, stops noticing the little things she does, she begins to feel more like an obligation than a priority. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of every marriage. Love can be renewed. Connection can be restored. The key is awareness and effort. Husbands must remember that just as they pursued their wives in the beginning, they must continue to do so as the years go by, because in the end, A woman doesn't stop loving her husband because of time. She stops because she no longer feels loved, valued, or understood. The question now is, what will you do to change that? Marriage is a beautiful union designed by God, meant to be a lifelong partnership filled with love, understanding, and companionship. In the beginning, most husbands pour their hearts into pursuing their wives, and they bring flowers, whisper sweet words, and go out of their way to show affection. There are late-night conversations, long walks hand in hand, and the overwhelming joy of simply being together. However, as the years go by, many women begin to feel a quiet but growing distance between them and their husbands. The once loving gestures fade, deep conversations become rare, and emotional neglect settles into the marriage like an unseen force. One of the biggest reasons women start to dislike their husbands as they get older is not because love disappears, but because they feel emotionally abandoned. Love is not just about being present physically. It is about being present emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. When a woman feels like she is alone in her marriage, even when her husband is right beside her, resentment begins to build. She longs for connection, for the warmth of love that once existed, but instead she feels like a shadow in her own home. In many marriages, men assume that providing financially and taking care of external responsibilities is enough. They believe that if they are working hard, paying the bills, and keeping the family afloat, they are fulfilling their role. While these responsibilities are important, they do not replace the emotional and relational needs of a woman. A wife desires to feel valued, heard, and cherished, not just as a mother or homemaker, but as a woman, as a partner, and as an individual with dreams and emotions. When a husband stops investing in the emotional and spiritual aspects of the relationship, his wife starts to feel disconnected and unappreciated. The Bible reminds us of the importance of love and care within marriage. In Ephesians 5:25 it says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." This verse is a powerful reminder that marriage is not just about duty. It is about love, sacrifice, and continual pursuit. Christ never stops loving his church, never stops showing affection, and never stops communicating. In the same way, a husband must never stop pursuing his wife emotionally, even after many years of marriage. Over time, if emotional neglect continues, a woman begins to feel invisible. She may start to wonder if she is still attractive to her husband, if she still matters, or if she is simply there to serve and support without receiving anything in return. The small acts of kindness that once made her smile, like an unexpected hug or heartfelt compliment or a simple "I love you," start to disappear. Without these affirmations, she may begin to doubt her place in the marriage. Communication is one of the first things to suffer when emotional neglect sets in. In the early years, couples talk for hours, sharing their dreams, struggles, and thoughts. They support each other through challenges, laugh at inside jokes, and feel like best friends. But as time goes on, those deep conversations are replaced with surface-level interactions. Did you pay the bill? What's for dinner? Did you pick up the kids? The emotional connection weakens, and without realizing it, the couple becomes more like roommates than soulmates. A woman craves emotional intimacy just as much as physical intimacy. She wants to feel heard, to have meaningful conversations, and to know that her husband is still interested in who she is. When a husband stops listening, stops asking questions, and stops engaging in meaningful discussions, his wife begins to feel isolated. She may turn to friends, family, or even distractions like social media to fill the emotional void. What once was a strong, loving bond now becomes a distant relationship filled with unmet needs. God designed marriage to be a partnership where both husband and wife feel loved and valued. Colossians 3:19 instructs, "Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them." This means that love is not just about big moments or grand gestures. It is about daily actions, about speaking kindly, about showing appreciation, and about making sure a wife never feels neglected. A woman does not want to beg for love. She wants it to be given freely, just as Christ freely gives his love to us. When emotional neglect becomes a pattern, it can lead to frustration and bitterness. Women who once adored their husbands begin to feel indifferent or even resentful. They remember the man who once pursued them with passion and wonder why that man seems to have disappeared. Some women may try to address the issue, hoping their husband will listen, but if their concerns are dismissed, they start to withdraw. They stop trying to communicate because they feel unheard. They stop expecting affection because they feel it will never come. They stop fighting for the relationship because they feel like they are fighting alone. Restoring emotional connection in a marriage requires effort and intention. It means taking the time to ask, "How was your day?" and actually listening to the answer. It means sending a thoughtful text in the middle of a busy day just to say, "I appreciate you." It means holding hands, making eye contact, and reminding a wife that she is still cherished. It means praying together, growing spiritually as a couple, and making marriage a priority rather than an afterthought. A husband must understand that love is not something that runs on autopilot. It requires daily maintenance, just like faith. Just as we must continually seek God and nurture our relationship with Him, a husband must continually seek his wife and nurture their marriage. Neglect is not always intentional, but its impact is real. Women do not start disliking their husbands overnight. It happens gradually as a result of years of emotional absence. If a husband wants to keep his marriage strong, he must never stop making his wife feel loved. The simple truth is this: women do not fall out of love because they age. They fall out of love because they feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. If a husband chooses to love his wife the way Christ loves the church, faithfully, passionately, and sacrificially, then emotional neglect will never have a place in their home. Lack of communication is one of the biggest reasons why women start to feel disconnected from their husbands as they get older. In the beginning, conversations flow effortlessly. A couple can talk for hours about their dreams, their future, and even the small details of their day. But as time goes on, communication often becomes less about connection and more about necessity. Instead of deep, meaningful conversations, the dialogue shifts to responsibilities. Who is picking up the kids? What bills need to be paid? What's for dinner? The emotional intimacy that was once built through conversation begins to fade, leaving a woman feeling unheard and unimportant in her own marriage. God created communication as a way for people to connect, not just with words, but with their hearts. In Proverbs 18:21, the Bible says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." This verse reminds us that words have the ability to build or destroy relationships. When communication becomes shallow or absent, it slowly drains the life out of a marriage. A woman who once felt emotionally safe with her husband may begin to feel like a stranger in her own home. She longs for deep conversation, for moments of vulnerability, for the reassurance that she is still valued and understood. Many men assume that their wives already know how they feel, so they stop expressing their love through words. They believe that working hard, providing for the family, and staying in the marriage is enough. But women need more than just physical presence. They need emotional presence. They need to hear that they are appreciated, loved, and still desired. Without these affirmations, a wife begins to question her place in the marriage. She wonders if she is still attractive to her husband, if he still values her opinion, or if he is even interested in her thoughts anymore. As communication weakens, misunderstandings increase. Small issues that could have been solved with a simple conversation turn into unresolved conflicts. A wife may feel hurt by something her husband said, but instead of discussing it, she keeps it inside, allowing resentment to build. Meanwhile, the husband may assume everything is fine because his wife hasn't voiced her concerns. Over time, this lack of communication creates emotional distance, making the marriage feel cold and disconnected. Another challenge that arises is that men and women often communicate differently. Women tend to express their emotions more openly, while men may struggle to articulate their feelings. When a wife tries to talk about her emotions and her husband responds with silence or indifference, she feels dismissed. She may eventually stop trying to talk altogether, believing that her words don't matter. This silence becomes dangerous because it creates a gap between the couple that continues to grow over time. Ephesians 4:29 gives clear guidance on how communication should be handled in a marriage. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. A husband's words should uplift, encourage, and strengthen his wife. A simple, "I love you," "I appreciate everything you do," or "How was your day?" can make a world of difference in keeping the connection strong. When communication is lacking, a wife may begin to seek emotional support elsewhere. She may turn to friends, family members, or even social media to fill the void. While these outlets can provide temporary relief, they do not replace the deep emotional connection that a wife desires with her husband. She doesn't want just surface-level conversations. She wants a partner who listens, understands, and genuinely cares about what she has to say. Technology and daily distractions also contribute to communication breakdown in marriages. Many husbands come home from work exhausted and immediately turn to their phones, television, or other distractions instead of engaging with their wives. What used to be time spent talking about the day turns into silence, each person absorbed in their own world. A wife sitting next to her husband on the couch, watching him scroll through his phone instead of engaging with her, will eventually feel ignored and unimportant. Another reason why communication fades is that couples stop asking questions. In the early days, they were curious about each other, asking about favorite memories, personal thoughts, and future dreams. But as years pass, the questions stop, and with them the excitement of truly knowing one another fades. A woman wants to feel like her husband is still interested in who she is, what she thinks, and what she dreams about. When a husband stops actively listening, his wife may begin to feel like she is talking to a wall. Active listening means more than just hearing words. It means responding with engagement, showing empathy, and demonstrating that her words matter. A woman wants to feel like her emotions are validated and that she has a safe space to share her heart without judgment or dismissal. Fixing communication in a marriage requires intentional effort. A husband must take time to talk to his wife, not just about daily responsibilities, but about things that matter to her heart. He must put aside distractions, ask meaningful questions, and truly listen. He must learn to speak words of affirmation, reassure her of his love, and make communication a priority. Women don't start to dislike their husbands because they no longer love them. They become distant when they feel unheard, unappreciated, and disconnected. The good news is that communication can be restored through open and honest conversations, intentional listening, and a commitment to emotional connection. A marriage can be strengthened and renewed. When a husband chooses to truly communicate with his wife, not just with words, but with his heart, he creates a marriage built on love, trust, and lifelong companionship. Household responsibilities and the mental load are among the most common reasons why women begin to feel resentment toward their husbands as they grow older. In the early years of marriage, many couples believe they will share responsibilities equally. However, as time passes, women often find themselves carrying the majority of the burden, managing the household, taking care of the children, organizing schedules, remembering important dates, and ensuring that everything runs smoothly. This unseen labor, often referred to as the mental load, is exhausting, and when it is not acknowledged or shared, it leads to frustration and emotional distance in the marriage. The mental load is not just about physical chores. It is about constant planning, decision-making, and emotional labor. Women often have to think ahead: what groceries need to be bought, what appointments need to be scheduled, what bills need to be paid, and even what the children will wear to school. Even if a husband helps with some tasks, many women still feel like they are the ones responsible for making sure everything gets done. This constant pressure can become overwhelming, making a wife feel more like a manager than a partner. Many husbands do not intentionally ignore their wives' workload. They simply do not realize how much responsibility their wives are carrying. A man may believe that because he works outside the home, his wife should handle everything at home. But in today's world, many women also work full-time jobs, and yet they are still expected to take care of most household tasks. When a husband does not actively participate in the daily responsibilities of family life, his wife begins to feel overworked and underappreciated. She may start to see him as another person she has to take care of, rather than as a partner who supports her. The Bible teaches us about the importance of partnership in marriage. In Ecclesiastes 4:9, it says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor." Marriage is meant to be a shared effort where both husband and wife work together to build a home and a life. When one person carries the majority of the responsibility while the other assumes everything is fine, it creates imbalance and resentment. A wife wants to feel like her husband sees her, values her work, and is willing to share the load with her. As the years go by, many women begin to feel invisible in their own homes. They wake up early, prepare meals, take care of the children, manage household tasks, and go to bed exhausted, only to repeat the same routine the next day. If her husband does not acknowledge her efforts, thank her, or offer to help, she starts to feel like her hard work is taken for granted. Over time, this lack of appreciation turns into bitterness. She may not say anything at first, but the frustration builds up inside her, and eventually it affects how she views her husband. Another source of frustration is that many women have to constantly remind their husbands to do things. Instead of their spouse taking initiative, they feel like they have to give instructions and make sure things get done. This makes them feel like the only responsible adult in the relationship. A husband may think he is helping when he waits for his wife to tell him what to do, but in reality, she wants him to notice what needs to be done without having to ask. She wants to feel like she has a true partner who is engaged and aware, not someone who waits to be told before taking action. Parenting responsibilities also play a major role in this imbalance. Many mothers take on the majority of child tasks, from scheduling doctor's appointments to helping with schoolwork and remembering extracurricular activities. When a husband assumes that parenting is mostly his wife's responsibility, she starts to feel alone in raising their children. She wants her husband to be an active and engaged father, not just someone who occasionally helps when asked. Colossians 3:23 reminds us, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." This verse applies not only to work outside the home, but also to responsibilities within the home. When a husband actively participates in household duties and parenting, he shows his wife that he values their marriage and respects her efforts. It is not about dividing tasks perfectly, but about being willing to share the weight of responsibilities. One of the most damaging aspects of the mental load is that it leaves women with little time for themselves. A wife who is constantly managing everything for her family has no energy left to take care of her own needs. She may neglect her health, her personal interest, or even her spiritual growth because she is so focused on making sure everything gets done. When she sees that her husband has free time to relax while she is constantly overwhelmed, resentment grows. She may begin to feel like she is sacrificing her well-being while her husband enjoys his freedom. The solution to this issue is not complicated, but it requires effort and awareness. Husbands need to take an active role in the household, not just assume their wives will handle everything. Simple actions like cooking a meal, cleaning up, helping with the children, or even just acknowledging and appreciating a wife's efforts can make a huge difference. A husband should not wait for his wife to break down in exhaustion before stepping in. He should be proactive in making sure the household responsibilities are shared. Women do not start to dislike their husbands overnight. It happens gradually, through years of feeling unheard, unappreciated, and overburdened. A marriage flourishes when both partners work together, supporting and valuing each other in all aspects of life. A husband who truly loves his wife will recognize that marriage is a partnership, not a one-sided arrangement. When both spouses carry the weight of responsibility together, love and respect will grow, and the bond between them will remain strong throughout the years. At the beginning of a marriage, love is filled with appreciation, admiration, and gratitude. Husbands and wives express their love freely, often thanking each other for the smallest gestures. A husband might praise his wife for her kindness, her beauty, or even the way she makes a house feel like a home. But as time passes, many of these expressions fade. What was once acknowledged and valued now becomes expected. A woman who once felt cherished starts to feel like her efforts are unnoticed, her sacrifice and her presence taken for granted. Women do not stop loving their husbands overnight, nor do they suddenly develop resentment for no reason. The shift happens gradually, over years of feeling unappreciated. A wife may start to wonder if all she does is simply expected rather than valued. She wakes up early to prepare meals, takes care of the children, manages household chores, and ensures that everything in the family runs smoothly. If no one acknowledges her effort, no one expresses gratitude, and no one offers to help, she starts to feel invisible. The Bible reminds us in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." Gratitude is not just a kind gesture, it is a biblical principle. A husband who consistently expresses thankfulness for his wife's efforts will strengthen their relationship. A simple thank you for the meal she made, a compliment on how well she takes care of the home, or even recognizing how much she does for the family can mean the world to her. But when appreciation disappears, love starts to fade along with it. Many women find themselves doing things out of obligation rather than love because they no longer feel valued. She might still cook dinner, clean the house, and take care of the children, but her heart is no longer in it. What once felt like a joy now feels like a burden. A wife who feels appreciated will go above and beyond for her family because she feels loved and respected. But when she feels taken for granted, she begins to withdraw.